The way that you turn it into real estate is your mind is the first thing that you invest in. Our reality has zero to do with what we see, but all to do with what we believe. And if I don't believe that I have valuable enough to make that investment to purchase a home or purchase land or get into residential or things like that, if I don't see that I am valuable enough to take that risk on myself, then who else is going to do that?
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins.
I'm very certain that all of us have had this question or heard it asked before, or even said before, that your why is so important, that you need to have a purpose in life. But if we're all out chasing or running after happiness, how do we know what it is? How do we know when is enough? When enough is enough? How do we know how real estate is going to relate to this? What is it that we're looking for? Why is it that time or money that we're searching more of these things, that we need passive income? But there's so many times in our life that this pain that we're struggling through to get there on our way to where we've set this goal, that pain can be turned into a purpose. And this conversation today is going to wrap that whole idea of chasing down what means the most to us. And how that pulls us through these difficult times to get to that point where we're supposed to be, where we are free, living life by design, and we're able to turn that pain into passion and help other people. How does that have anything to do with real estate? Today's conversation, we're diving into it. Today's guest is a licensed clinical social worker that has amazing story to tell. You're going to want to listen to this. A confidence coach, master healer, transformative speaker on TEDx. You're going to want to check this out. Today, everybody, please welcome Mylira Green to the show. Mylira, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. I come right out of the gate and just pronounced your first name splendidly, didn't I?
You did. It was awesome.
Very cool. How challenging is that for you to have a name that's kind of said a few different ways, right?
It used to be challenging. So my name is a mixture between my mom and my dad. My dad's name is Michael Jerome. My mom is Myra Yvette, so they got Mylira Gervette. So over the years, I've got Mylira, Malaria, a bunch of stuff, and I realized that people wasn't intentionally trying to butcher my name. So now when I go out, I just tell people call me Luna. So my kids are like, her name isn't Mylira anymore, it's Luna. Because I'm so used to it. So it took some time, and I'm polite with it. I don't get upset. I just tell people, this is how you say it.
Yeah, it's interesting. My daughter's name is Aliana. And then some people will throw Aliena, all these different things and try to make it difficult. But when it comes down to it, there is goodness, I think, in so many people's heart, because your name is the most beautiful sounding thing to you, right? And for me, before we go on in any of these shows, I always want to say the name just like your mom said it, because that's that beautiful sound to us, and I really appreciate it. Well, now that we've got this, let's rock and roll. Tell us a little bit about Mylira. Where do we come from? Where do we go? And how do we end up here? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I am what they would call a country girl with a city girl swag. I was born and raised in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and I've basically stayed here my entire life. The person that you see today is someone who has been able to realize that life didn't happen to me, but for me. My story of trauma starts when I was 3. And from there, I've experienced so many different levels of abuse and bullying and self-hate and so much more. that I am a survivor of a suicide attempt. And when I survived that, I made literally my whole entire life plot is to make sure that people never get to that point. And that's why I became a social worker. So I was able to kind of turn my pain into purpose and really being able to not just have the book knowledge, but have the experience. So when people come to me and they're telling me about their struggles, I'm not just looking at it from a clinical standpoint, but I can say, hey, I've been in your shoes before and I know what I did to kind of get out of that space. I'm a lover of life. So if you see me doing anything, I love to dance. So you throw in a song, that's what I do. I'm a family person, hands down. But my entire purpose is to allow for each person I come in contact with to know that they are enough so that they don't think that suicide is their answer.
Yes, that's amazing. And what an amazing journey. Holy cow. And I'm so excited for this conversation because how do we relate this to real estate, Mylira? Where are we going to go with this? Tell me a little bit about this. Where do you see this going? This is the Real Estate Mogul MD. Where do we go from here? How do we take that from where the challenges that you had and then creating this beautiful perspective of gratitude and happiness and, knowing that life is for you and not against you? Where do we go from? How do we turn this into real estate?
So the way that you turn it into real estate is your mind is the first thing that you invest in. Our reality has zero to do with what we see, but all to do with what we believe. And if I don't believe that I have valuable enough to make that investment to purchase a home or purchase land or get into residential or things like that, if I don't see that I am valuable enough to take that risk on myself, then who else is going to do that? And there are a lot of people that may go on two opposite ends of the spectrum where they become hoarders of their money because they're afraid to not have, or they become overindulgers and that materialistic things is what they find their value in. So in order for someone to be a successful mogul in real estate, you have to first have a mogul mentality in your mindset. And you have to know that you are valuable enough to invest in yourself and then also do it in a smart way and having the right people in your corner. But that takes a level of trust. If you can't trust yourself, how are you going to trust other people? So for me and what I do as a therapist, as a Reiki master, as a speaker and a coach, is I get people to see that they are enough to dream big, that their dream should feel like it's not attainable, so that every day they do something that gets them one step closer to that. So if that is in the real estate world, if this is someone who may be listening who wants to make an investment and buy their own home, or someone who's actually working in the industry, I'm going to tell you your biggest success is going to start in your mind first.
I love it. And I'm right there with you. I think everything starts with the mind. And if you, so many books, I actually had the privilege and the honor of writing a book. What a journey that is. But where we started, Mylira, was the very first thing is here in your mind. And so much of what happens to us, whether we know it or not, affects who we are today. So think about that, the trauma that we have, whether it's related to money or family or living conditions, it's that idea of what makes us feel safe, what makes us safe, and then how our body reacts to that. And we create these habits over time that we don't even know what's happening, right? I'm not a psychotherapist. I'm not any of this. I'm not a neurologist. I don't know all of these things, just from my own personal experience that I get to speak from. And that idea that it starts in the mind is so important. And that self-realization stage it almost gives me goosebumps to think about it. The moment where you're like, wait a second, that's what's making me feel this way. That's why I'm afraid to do this. That's why I think I don't have time. That's why I think I don't have the money, right? There's so many things that are holding us back. How do we start to step into that self-realization phase of understanding who we are and how our body is really reacting to things before we're given a chance to respond to things?
Well, one, you have to understand that most of us don't know who we are. If you think back to children in general, we're told who we are growing up. So there's a lot of times where we're in war with who is our true inner essence, But because we're taught to move a certain way, speak a certain way, our culture tells us to move a certain way, our parents parent us in a certain way that we, go out, our experiences cultivate us, but each one of us was born with a unique purpose and passion. And it takes a moment of time where you say, hey, I really don't know myself. Let me find out who I am. And I feel like it will benefit every human being to have that moment. That's like, for me, I'm a whole therapist, but I'm a therapist with a therapist. I'm a coach with a coach. Like, I'm in a space where I realize I don't know fully who Mylira is, because Mylira has spent a lot of her life trying to please other people. I spent a lot of my life trying to make my parents happy. I spent a lot of my life trying to make the right decisions based off of my religious preference and just different things that for a while I didn't know who I was. So when you finally look in the mirror and you say, hey, I am one heck of a person and I want to learn who I am, my strengths, my weaknesses, what makes me tick, the things about me that don't make me proud to be who I am. When you get to that point, then that's when you begin to make that difference and that change, and you go on that journey. And it doesn't have to be extensive. Sometimes people say, I don't have the money to invest in that. I don't have the money for a coach. I don't have the money to do this. But you can literally go to www.16personalities.com and take the Myers-Briggs assessment for free. And it tells you personality-wise who you are as a parent, who you are as a lover, who you are as a worker. Like, there's so many resources that we have, but it takes acknowledging first. Things do not change if I don't acknowledge that something needs to be changed. And us as human beings need to humble ourselves enough to say, I don't have it all together, but I get the opportunity to find out and uncover what the best version of me actually really is.
And being humble is often a challenge too. And you mentioned like the religious background, and in religion, it's almost like this is certain, this is fact, this is the absolute truth. And almost like it builds up a foundation for some people to not be open to change, or not, that maybe the idea, because it's all a perspective,
Yeah.
Mylira, it's all a perspective, because it's the way that we see things. So if I'm seeing that truth, it's in my perspective of that. But that humble piece is really, really important, because that's where that self-realization comes. You're like, wait a second, how do I see this? And how that affects us is so important, because then that leads into the why. The fruit that we're chasing, sometimes we don't even know what that is. And that first piece, that self-realization piece, is huge. It's challenging when you're humbling yourself and understanding that through pain is where we grow. And these moments then of understanding or grasping, then, okay, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm dealing with. What is it that I want? And I've asked this to, a few different guests on the show, that when is enough enough? And what does wealthy mean, right? Where are we going? Because I see so many high performance people build these machines that literally just eat them. And it takes
Yeah.
away from what they're supposed to be. If you're here on this earth with a family, right? I feel that that's the greatest opportunity that you have in front of you, is you're raising up another person, another human being, and you're doing that with love. That's so important. And when we build these high performance machines, because we're chasing after maybe the shiny things, or this, I want to make a name for myself, or sometimes even too, we've got this pendulum where I didn't grow up with money, so I want to create the system where I want to make it so good for my kids, and then I'm swinging this pendulum. It goes so far one way. Well, if that pendulum goes one way, guess what I'm leaving behind? The
Yeah.
thing that I did grow up with in my family. So in order to create those machines, I'm creating this situation that can change some of the most important things in our life. So that
Yeah.
self-realization is so big, to get down to the back. If it's based on religion, if it's based on God, if it's based on love, where do I go? And this is so crazy, because we're talking about money, right? We're talking about real estate. But those are the moments that we get to chase, to have that true fulfillment,
Mm-hmm.
and that life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, this peace, pursuit of happiness. It is a decision. Happiness is a decision, but it comes from so many decisions along the way. You asked me how I was doing today. I say this all the time on the show, and I believe it. You better believe it. I said, today's the best day of my life, right? I've never been better. Today is it. And living that life by choice, by design, is so important. And we do that with the self-realization, like you're saying, And then picking out these things. Where do we go? How do we know when is enough enough?
Man, I tell anybody when it comes to money, I use this analogy. Money is like a bird. If I go outside and I chase a bird, it's going to fly away. But if I stand out in the horizon and I look at it, before you know it, it's a group of birds sitting there taking an amazing bath, talking to each other. And the sight is very beautiful. And that is what money is. But we're taught to go and chase it instead of doing what we are existing to be. Tony Jones, an amazing affirmation artist, she says, we are human beings and not human doers. We're taught to do. We're taught the more I do, the more I get. But if we really think about the things that that money cannot buy, that's important to us, that's when things become enough. And I'm a living testament of that. For the last 2 years, I've been a full-time entrepreneur. I've owned my business for 7 years. And you cannot tell me that this was not my time to shine. I was ready. I've done a TEDx speech. I wanted to go and travel the world, and I had clients. Things was well, bills were being paid. And then life took a turn for me, and it got to a point where I had to sit down and ask myself, what's most important? If my children turn 18 years old and I'm giving them the inheritance that I'm building for them, their legacy, and they look at me and they say, who are you? What did I do it for? So for me, I had to ask myself that question. So what is actually the most important? The thing for me that's important is my kids know who I am, that I'm there at their games, that I'm there at the parent teacher conferences, that I have a job now that I'm about to start that's going to be on their schedule. So when they're out of school, I'm out and I don't feel bad and I get paid to be home being with my kids. Sometimes we have to realize every yes we give is a no to something else. So when I say yes to that hustle and that bustle and that well-oiled machine, yes, I'm bringing in a lot of money, but to what result? Like, that's why for me, a big of what I want to do is work with people who are celebrities and their families because of that. We got this well-oiled machine. We got all this money. We got everything that we want, but we have nothing that we need because nobody's talking about, again, when is enough enough? If we chase money, it's never going to be enough. We're always going to want more. But when we chase joy, we chase peace, we chase happiness, we chase those things that are innately to us, we can gauge off of a feeling, and that feeling doesn't go away because, like you said, if every day I have the mindset today is the best day of my life, and I know today is always going to be the best day of my life, then that is enough. It's not the best day because I just got $1,000 check. It's not the best day because I just won the lottery or just bought a house. It's the best day because I'm choosing for it to be the best day. And I think that's when people can know that it's enough, when it's attached to something that I cannot earn, but it's something that I just choose that I have.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And that pendulum swinging one way, when you say yes, it's a picture of that pendulum again. When I'm saying yes to this, it swings. Well, when that pendulum swings one way, it's swinging away from something. I'm swinging towards something and away from one thing. And it's such a challenge because it is limited to not only our time, but the attention that we have to give certain things.
Yeah.
And being able to be okay with things being uneven or chaotic or not as planned. I mean, that is life. And if you live with that decision to be happy in those moments, don't get me wrong, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. And I know it is this that way with you. I mean, we could come on here and smile and be like everybody else on social media and be like, hey, life is great. I've got a car. And, but it's those moments of pain where we have this foundation to build from because I know what I've got, and I know what's inside of me, and I know what I'm growing to be. It's really important. And when we choose a path that allows us to stay focused on that and give the things that we love attention in our life, it's remarkable. That is leading us to real estate because real estate allows us to build passive income. There's nothing ever is 100% passive. Even the passive stuff that we do, I don't know if you do any syndication, passive type investing. No matter how passive it is, you've got to put time into it up front to understand who it is that's operating the deal, right? But once you get going, you can set up these relationships and these structures, these companies that allow you to build wealth without trading time for it.
Yeah.
That's when we get to turn and face. If I can take that leg and prop me up with that leg, then I get to focus my attention on those things that I love in my life. One is family, giving back, these amazing things. So we started with the mindset, and it's so big, but it goes so much deeper, right? It
Mhm.
goes into the spirit, and that spirit helps us see or feel. We can't see it, right? Oh, it'd be something if we could see it, but we feel these things, like we get these ideas in that self-realization phase, and we start to feel what's important to me. And I think our spirit allows us to connect with those things. It's that thing that I don't even know if we hear it, right? I don't even know if I know we can't. Can we see it? Do we see signs? I don't know. There's something in us that helps us connect these dots as we go from the self-realization into action, right?
Yeah. And it's a space of, I'm because I am Christian and that's seen as the world biggest religion, but I call myself someone who I just focus more on the spiritual relationship I have with my creator. I went on a 5-year hiatus where I studied so many different religions and things like that. And I realized each one of them is saying the same thing. They just call the deity something different.
Mhm.
Um, and it allowed for me to have a bigger appreciation of other people. And how does this relate to real estate is every person investment is going to look different because they're going to do it for a different reason. And when we come together and we're talking about mindset and we're talking about self-actualization, we're talking about all of those things, we also got to talk about Maslow hierarchy of needs. And all of us have a need to feel like we're safe. And that safety doesn't come from the environment being safe. It becomes from that belonging. And there's so many of us that spend our money based off of the need to belong. So, the saying, keeping up with the Joneses or keeping a face or trying to look a certain way, or I know that I'm a good steward. So I want to show people on the outside that God blesses people who are good stewards. We have these weird, wonky mindsets. But what I'm realizing is when we're making these investments, it is a spiritual piece because not everybody is meant to have the same life path. So when you understand that, you're able to sit down and figure out what level of investment that you want to do. Is it being someone who just purchased your own home, or is it somebody who's going to flip homes? Is it someone who's a landlord? Like, you got to decide what your footprint is going to be, but that goes back to that mindset. Do you think that you're valuable enough to make a valuable footprint, or are you doing it for show? Because it's for show, it's going to end. The finale finally comes, and when I do it for my purpose never dies. So it goes back to people really getting that mindset of like, this is a value decision. This is not just a money making business, but this is a value business where you're creating a safety for people. Because people homes are their sanctuary. So when we're talking about the spiritual capacity and real estate and all these things, you got to understand whatever you're doing in the real estate world, you're creating people personal sanctuaries. So based off of your own energy, your own mindset, that is what you're selling. You're not selling a house, you're selling you. You're selling your mindset, you're selling your heart, you're selling what you want to do. So when it comes to people investing in this aspect, it's really big to remember your why. What is your why? Because when you remember your why, that takes away that not being there for your family. That takes away the long nights when you should be going to sleep. That takes away from you being afraid to say, hey, I work 9 to 5. Don't call me after 5. I'll sell your house tomorrow. It's that piece of seeing how valuable you are and how the spirit of you is what's really making those sales or really making those investments. And you'll start to actually do things to invest in that. And then everything else will kind of come into place.
One of the difficult things in long-term rental in the buy and hold real estate world is you mentioned you're kind of building or creating these scenarios for other people for that to be their safety, right? It is so hard when you look at certain ways that certain people just that they live. And
Yeah.
it's so hard. And it's like, you should not be living like that. I'm not here to judge
Mhm.
any of it. If I am here to help, is that a situation where I can help? But there's a whole nother challenge is like there's business and
Yep.
then there's help, right? Then there's helping. And it's like I always tell everybody we have to be intentional on both. We have to be intentionally business savvy, we have to be intentionally helping people. Because when those two blend, is not good. And
Yeah.
there's times when we look into homes, like we'll do a home inspection or something, and it just comes back nasty and just, oh my goodness, how do people live like this? right? There's some other things happening. So it becomes a challenge, but that is an awesome way to think of it. Like we're giving them that ability to feel safe. And the choice of free will is a blessing that we all have to go in one direction or another. When we have an opportunity to say yes or say no, or to do something, to not do something, that's where that person, that family is making their own choice, and it makes it really difficult. And it makes me think about this why and purpose question. What I don't know what my why is, right? I don't know. I feel my purpose right now, Mylira, is to be better than who I was yesterday. I want to be a better father than I was yesterday. I want to be a better leader than I was yesterday. I want to be a better person than I was yesterday. I feel like that's my purpose right now, and that's really driving me and helping me live each day as it is the best day of my life. I
Yeah.
don't know what my why is.
Mm, I tell anybody your why can change based off of that moment is X. I think we do this thing where we got to find that one thing and then stick to it. And that's not how life works because things always change. Circumstances are different. The people and the players in that moment is different. But I believe if you know what your purpose is, then your why should be aligned. It's more of an alignment than a knowing a full picture of it. So for me, I look at purpose as the big picture. So my purpose is to transform the lives of every person I touch, whether that is actually in person, from a social media status, from a speech they see me do. But your life should be 1% different than what it was before you and I met. That's my purpose. But my why for right now is I want suicide to die with me. I know what it feels like to be seconds away from no longer being here because I decided to give up. So my why is for those individuals that are like me, that are high functioning, that are happy, that's the life of the party, that is accomplished, that is doing all these things, but on the inside, the one thing they don't have is what's killing them. I go and I live for that. I live transparently and vulnerable so those people can know that you can be I'm trying to stop cussing. You can be a boss. There we go. You can be a boss and still struggle. You can be the person that everybody calls on and still not be okay. That is my why. My why is for those people that feel like it's not okay to not be okay. That it's not okay to struggle. It's not okay to say I tap out right now. So for me, my why may change one day, but that's what it is right now. But it goes to my bigger purpose, which is to transforming people's lives.
That's amazing. And my first instinct is like, well, it's easy for you because you had challenges, right? You had challenges, so now it's easy for you to be passionate and to know your why and know your purpose. But it's not. It's not,
Mhm.
that's not easy. It was actually harder because you dealt with that stuff and you had to get through that stuff. So, and I'm still thinking back, one of the things that helped me get closer to a why and purpose thing was a book called Seven Primal Questions. Have you read that?
I haven't.
No, it's interesting, and that came down to basically these questions we ask ourselves, and I see it. I'm enough, right? I see that in the stuff that you have is that's one. Am I enough, right? Am
Yeah.
I enough? That may have even been one of the questions, but in when I'm asking myself internally these primal questions, is it a yes or a no? And just simple, is it a yes? Then that's good. If it's a no, then I'm starting to tell these other stories to myself and build these things up. And in those times of darkness and in pain, we keep building these stories, telling ourselves these stories. And when we're ultimately reaching for the good thing, right? That I am enough. And these seven primal questions also interesting because it builds it builds our gifts because
Yeah.
through your pain, through your struggle, there's fruit from that because once was your pain is now is your gift, right? Is now is your why, is your purpose. It's really interesting. My mine weirdly enough comes out to be something about success, and I struggle with this all the time. I never want to say, "Hey, I do this and I do this." I want to, I feel like I want to help everybody, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm successful myself, which is exactly what the book is saying. But in my gift of that struggle of never feeling good enough, I am enough, I'm not successful, is that I want to make everybody else around me successful.
Yeah.
Just like the gift, I think that I hear you say, and I feel that that's coming from you through your struggles now is a gift to help other people.
Yeah. And I look at it kind of like, I believe it was Paul in the Bible where he had a thorn in his side and he was asking God to take it away. And I promise I'm not going to make it religious, but I want you guys to see a visual where there's this guy that is serving his master. And he's like, it's this thing on my side that just won't go away. It's so much pain. I'm trying to work. I'm trying to do everything you asked me to do, but I have this pain. But I realize it's there because it's allowed for us to go back to whoever our creator is.
Mm.
That's what keeps us humble is that pain. Like I tell people all the time, I strive to end suicide because I know what it feels like to wake up not wanting to live anymore.
Yeah.
My whole thing is I'm enough because I don't feel like I'm enough. So that thing that becomes that pain becomes that thing that's a reminder that, hey, like my purpose has to be so much bigger than this, that I'm going to use my pain to encourage other people because now I get to feel what they feel. Like now I'm not just spewing statistics like 139 successful suicides are there every day in the United States alone. I'm not just saying that. I can say, hey, I was almost that 139. And
Mhm.
because I was almost that 139, I know how you feel right now, but I also know what it looks like on the other side.
Yeah.
And that's where we want to truly thrive for people. I tell people, your greatest money maker is your pain. When you can stop running away from your pain and you can start using your story becomes your purpose. That purpose end up evolving into a why. And now you will work no day in your life because you're basically getting paid to live and do what you really want to do. But it gets to a point of understanding that that pain doesn't have to be big. Like there's some people that hear my story in its entirety and they're like, oh my God, I shouldn't feel this way because your story is horrible. And I'm like, no, my story does not diminish yours. It's just
Yeah.
what are we going to do with it now?
Yeah.
How are we going to push forward? How are we going to encourage people? How are we going to inspire people? And even on your platform here, somebody may be watching this that want to get in your field, but again, they don't feel like they're good enough. They don't feel like they're ever going to be successful. But Les Brown says it this way. He says, you don't have to be great to get started, but you do have to get started to be great.
Yeah.
And sometimes is being literally a fake and a phony. I remember for years I was preaching, I'm enough, you're beautiful, you're amazing, and all this. And the whole time I was telling myself, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, no, I'm not. But I kept doing it until I believed it. And now today I can say I believe that Mylira is a wonderful person. But it took me years to get to that. And sometimes it just starts with that one step, that one affirmation that you say every day, that one thing that you're like, hey, I don't believe it right now, but I'm going to keep telling myself that. Or it's getting other people to see it. And because you see them seeing it, it's like, oh, well, if I can get them to see it, now I can see that I am. So it's taking that pain, turning it into purpose, because we definitely hold the antidote to somebody's cancer. And that's why I tell people, there's people attached to your yes to your purpose. If you don't say yes to your purpose, there's going to be people out there that won't reach theirs.
That's amazing. Les Brown, if I could bottle that man's laughter and just put
Yes.
it in, oh man, that is just the thought of hearing it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. I love Les Brown. Such a remarkable speaker, and the message and the passion that he delivers is awesome. Why is it that we feel we need to apologize when we start talking about religion or being a Christian, or if I quote the Bible? Why is that? Why I do it too? Like, why would I need to apologize for that?
Well, I think a part of it is because there's a lot of people that have experienced church hurt
Hmm.
that are now trying to be the best version of themselves, but because they're so hurt, they're now angry with just the terminology of Christianity.
Hmm.
So because we don't want to offend anybody and we genuinely want to save lives, you'll see people who have like a genuine desire to save souls. We apologize because we don't want that one soul to be lost because we said something that ruffled them the wrong way. So I know for me, a lot of times I will caveat, and it could be because of my profession too. My profession says I'm supposed to be non-biased. So I can be Christian all day, but I work with any person with different backgrounds, cultures, and things like that. So I'm supposed to show up where I only go based off of what you share, but I am a Christian hands down. So a scripture is going to come out of me. How I speak, even if I don't say where the scripture comes from, it's going to feel like a sermon. Like, so at times I've learned in the professional sense of things to create that, what do they call it? A disclaimer. You know, hey, if you feel like I'm taking you to church, I want to apologize. I'm not trying to offend you. It's the sense of we have politically made being who we truly are a sin in a way.
Yeah.
And because of that, we feel like we have to apologize. I know I do because I'm very, I won't even say religious in a sense, but God is my everything. So I permeate the word. I permeate the Holy Spirit. There's a lot of times that when I speak, trust me, we're going to have this podcast. And if you ask me next week what we talked about, I have no idea. Because it's truly a ministry for me. So I found myself apologizing for the two comments that come back after I speak. Well, she took us to church and I didn't like it. Well, I'm really sorry. Like, so I think it's those two things. One, being politically correct. And then two, the people who genuinely want to save souls. We don't want for the one thing that we do say to trigger a trauma that somebody had, that if we were just a little more empathetic with our words or less religious with our words, we could have saved that soul. I think that's where it comes from.
And it's such a struggle too, because deep down, when it is right, and if anybody out there is searching for their why or their passion, when that is genuine, when it
Yeah.
is based on love, the scary thing is that I may lose that opportunity to share what I've been given because I'm afraid of offending somebody, or I have to start with an apology, and how that twists the perspective of the other people
Yeah.
that are hearing that. It's fascinating, and it's even coming down to that perspective piece, right? Our perspective, that lens in which we see the world, is challenging, because even as a property owner, I mean, the negative stigma that's around a property owner, or certain types of property. And just like with the church hurt and the slumlords and all of these things, there are the few out there that cast this shadow over those of us that are genuine, that are full of God's love, that are now we have our times, whether it's traffic, whether it's in a situation, but the idea of it is very important. It's the spirit inside of us that shines the light through that shadow, right? And ultimately, when we are able to have that self-realization, those moments of being humble, that's where that growth comes from. And for anybody out there who can take that idea of that pain and turn it into their purpose, like
Yeah.
you, that is awesome. And that's why we're here. And it's challenging because, in a position where you have to be this kind of like equal balance kind of thing. But when it comes down to it, it's caught, not taught. I may be the only Bible that somebody reads, right? And that's the challenge too. Ideas about real estate, about religion, about money, all of this stuff where there's no research done, where there's no time or attention given to things, but yet we're quick to cast our opinion based off of things that we've seen, right? Caught, not taught. So if you're the only Bible that some people get to read, let them read. Let them read. Let the light shine bright, because it feels good. It feels like when I meet investors, when they say vet the jockey, right? When you have these discussions with people, whether you're going to go into business with them, we do get misled sometimes.
Yeah.
My wife is she's happy. I wouldn't take pride. I don't know if that's the right word, but in her ability to read people is really important. So sometimes we get misled, but when it comes down to it, it's about making that connection with who somebody is. That real who is really important. If you could collect all of these things from pain to purpose and put them back in front of you, let's do this. Let's say about 10 years. Let's go back 10 years.
Okay.
And you're sitting beside somebody, whether it's someone in that 139 category, not in that 139 category, maybe somebody that's in that same mindset as you 10 years ago, knowing all these beautiful things that you know now, the experiences that you know now, the ability to shine the light, even if you have to apologize for somebody, it's going to hurt their eyes because Mylira's light is bright. Watch your eyes. I'm about to turn it on. Anyway, if you're there, What are you telling that person who may be on the same path as you 10 years ago?
Man, I will tell that person that it is absolutely okay not to be okay, but what's not okay is staying there. I will tell that person that you're never going to be able to please your inner circle. And when I say inner circle, I mean your family. That's the one thing that we don't want to talk about. It is our families that causes the biggest damage. So just because they may not approve of who you are, now is the time at 21, because I'm 31, so that person be 21. Now it's time at 21 to figure out who you really are so that you can embrace yourself. It's okay to go to therapy. You can't have Jesus and a therapist. Your pastor cannot do it all for you. You want to have someone that's going to allow for you to, the way I like to put it is when you go to therapy, you're putting everything out on the table and that person distinguish for you what's your trash and what's your recyclables. Your trash is those things that might be extremely painful. There's really no lesson in it. It probably should have never happened, but it happened anyway. And now we're going to discard it. But the recyclable is the moments where it was lessons. The moments where I could have did a different turn than what I did. The moment where I allowed myself to settle for a certain relationship because I didn't think I had value. I didn't think I had worth. And that therapist allows you to distinguish between your recyclables and your trash, so then you can build a solid foundation for who you are. And it's okay to have a little bit of fun. If I could go back, I've accomplished so much at 31 that if I could go back to 21, I would tell myself to go to a club,
Mhm.
go and have some fun, go to a movie. Like sometimes we take life so seriously that we miss it. And then when we look up, it's like, hey, I haven't enjoyed any part. I'm very successful, but where did it go? So that's what I would tell that person. One, it's okay to not be okay. Two, go to therapy. Have a professional that's going to help you decipher between why do I feel like death is so much more better than life. There is something that's telling me that, and I need to figure out what it is. And three, have fun. Stop taking life so serious. We can't take this money and success with us into the ground. I have not seen anybody go to a graveyard and a U-Haul follow behind them with their house and all of their collectibles. It doesn't happen. So if I take the time out to really enjoy life, take that time, I think that 21-year-old will be successful, because then they'll be able to see that their life is worth living and is more than what they can do, but it's who they are as a being.
That's amazing. And that 21, speaking of you, Mylira, is successful. It's a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
That's the piece. And even in this moment where, I am so blessed. I feel so good. I've got my family. I'm doing what I love doing. Get to speak with wonderful people. I'm still a work in progress. There's so much more because I'm constantly working, learning, staying humble, and trying to do my best of seeing where I've got room to grow. I heard the analogy of it was actually a peach pit, but a seed. The seed's got to get into the dirt before it can provide that fruit. So no matter
Yeah.
what you're at or where you're from, you got to be in that dirt in order before you even can provide that fruit. And that's turning that pain into passion, and that pain into gain is really remarkable. And you got to get a little dirty, but it has to be what's deep inside of you, not on the outside.
Yeah.
Because it was a great analogy. Took a pair of white sneakers, put it in that dirt. Guess what happens? Everybody's cringing and like, oh no, don't get the
Yeah.
shoes dirty, right? Because it's all about aesthetics. But you put that seed in the dirt, nobody cringes. Everybody's excited because they
Yeah.
know what's going to come from that. And it made me think of being content but not complacent. Being
Yeah.
content, I'm happy with who I am because I am enough. I'm coming from the fact that I am enough. I'm coming from the fact that I am successful. And now I get to grow. It's not going to be perfect. I may have some crooks, some breaks, and some turns, but I continue to work on myself. Wow, now I get to help everybody else. And
Yeah.
in this journey, we're helping everybody else with these deep questions that somebody, I mean, you may not even think that this is related to real estate, but if you can't fix the person, then you can't help anybody else. If you can't fix the person, then you can't have anything else. It starts inside. We need to focus here first, and understanding that that may not be perfect, the plan that we have, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
work in progress. It's
Absolutely.
okay to be not okay, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Mylira. Man, it's been a wonderful conversation. And if anybody, you mentioned a web, or that was the personality test, right? How can the listeners get a hold of you? What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Well, the best way to get a hold of me is at www.myliratransforms.com, or I normally give my phone number, which is the 757-609-0694. It is not worth me giving you all this information and you don't know where to start. So feel free to text or call that number. I will answer. It comes directly to me, just so that you're not alone and you're not by yourself.
That's amazing. 757-609 sorry,
Zero six nine four.
0694. Yep, 757-609-0694. And then in the description, if the listeners have the ability to check out the description, we will put the .com in there as well too. That's MYLIRATRANSFORMS.com. And I just wonder, does anybody actually ever listen to me say that? And oh, let me, what was that again, Brett? Let me type that in. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting to be old school. I want to talk through things. But thank you for your time again. It was really wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
To the listeners out there today, thank you for your time. And as always, thank you for your attention. As that pendulum swings in your life, remember, saying yes to something is saying no to something else. Remember, when we're going for something, we're coming away from something. And just hopefully that attention that you put on that thing you're going towards is something that means the most to you in your life. And just like Mylira says, it's okay to not be okay. Even though we're all sunshine and rainbows on the outside and social media, it's not the way that it always is. It's okay to not be okay, and grow together and surround yourself with the right people. That can be the magnet that pulls you through those hard times as well, too. Until next time, this is the Real Estate Mogul, MD.